All right. Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the writing aspects of your history papers. I have now at this point provided feedback to everybody who turned in the first page, last page assignment. Thank you all very much for those of you who turned that in or who decided to do the makeup offering for it. I have noticed some things about the writing of it that because of the summer nature of the course and how fast it has to go, I didn't really have the ability to do like a full line edit. So what I did was a collection of some of the writing issues that I saw that need to be worked out before the paper is due next week. Okay, before we get into the like purely grammar side of it, or like formatting side of it, just two consistent problems I saw in the more tonal stuff in terms of your first page and last page. Both of them have to do with the intro. One is that you don't need to sell me on the idea of the study anymore. A lot of you, it seemed like, were borrowing language from the topic pitch when you pitched the idea to me. You totally don't have to keep that language, right? You actually probably shouldn't. Um, Assume that your intro is presenting research that is already done. And so you don't have to say, this study will do this because it's important. Say, this study did this because it's important. Now that seems like it's just a tense change, but it's more than that. It's changing the overall tone from being about, here's why I should write about this, to here is why I wrote about this. So make sure you are making those changes as needed. And also, you may need to make sure you have a coherent thesis statement. I saw a lot of you started off by discussing the historical context that you're writing in of the time or the event, and then you sort of end by talking vaguely about the notion of mass communication. Remember, this is a mass comm history course, which means that the primary tone of your paper needs to be about something involving the history of mass communication, which means that you need to have a strong thesis statement explaining that at some point. Like something as simple as, this study historically analyzed nightly news coverage of the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago and addressed how much visual violence was shown. Just, you need somewhere in the intro, preferably I would say towards the first half of the intro, just one statement, usually at the end of a paragraph, that explains what it is you're studying. That is, here in a sentence is summed up exactly what it is you are studying, is your thesis statement. So just make sure you have one of those in the intro as you're going about doing the editing. Okay, let's chat a little bit about some of the rules of writing history research and some suggestions I saw based on errors that I saw quite a bit of in the intros and conclusions that I read. Okay, first of all, this is one that about half of you had a problem with, and I probably should have told you about or reminded you about by now. This is something you have heard in likely all of your classes that involve research up to this point, including media ethics and the law class. I don't remember the name of the law class because none of us teach the law class. But any of your courses where you were performing research, remember, research does not use first-person pronouns. And so you're not using the word I or me or my. Instead, use terms like this study. So instead of saying, I looked at coverage of the 1968 DNC in Chicago, say, this study looked at news coverage of the 1968 DNC. So refer to stuff as this study. We're getting I, me, and my, all first-person pronouns. You're getting those out of the writing. I am bad to mess this one up a lot. So if you probably will look through the syllabus or my feedback and find that I have messed this one up because it's a hard one to catch. But the word media, particularly when we're doing mass communication research, is a plural. So it requires a plural verb. So media have, not media has. That is because media is actually technically a plural word. It is the plural of the word medium. So a newspaper is a medium, but newspapers, magazines, and books all represent printed media. So medium versus media. Media is the plural, so you need to use plural verbs. Punctuation goes on the inside of quotation marks. So any of your commas, question marks, periods, they go on the inside of quote marks. Do not insert extra spacing between paragraphs. The problem is that Microsoft Word will try to do this, and it looks bad and is bad formatting for APA style. It technically gives you a little extra space, so if you are worried about hitting the 10 to 12 page mark, it's a sneaky way to try to do it, but it's also incorrect, so you shouldn't do it. And if you don't know how to fix that, in Microsoft Word, if you go to the Layout button at the top, click that, and then you click this little symbol, looks like a down arrow next to the thing that says Paragraph, you can then pull this up, and you want to make sure that you've got two things set. One, you've got line spacing set to double, and the other, your after should be set to 0 points. By default, Microsoft Word likes to add this as 10 points after, and we don't want that. So make sure it is 0. Hopefully that screenshot helps you. Your Microsoft Word may be laid out differently, but you should have layout and paragraph in there somewhere. Kill the word very. I don't want to see the word very anywhere throughout this. It's a bad word for this kind of research or in research writing in general. Be as specific as possible when you can. So in saying something, instead of saying something like so-and-so was very liked or was very enjoyed, give it what its ratings were, TV ratings were, or be more detailed and specific of what it means that it was very liked or very well received, right? Very is just such a vague word. It doesn't have nearly as much of a punch to it. Get rid of it. Don't need it. Come up with better words. Ditch any cliche terms. Anything that is like an overuse of metaphor, just, yeah, makes for bad history writing. But any jargon that you may come across, explain. So if you're doing some research that involves older style, sort of older era newspaper publications, if you come across the word Bulldog edition, like something was very first written about in a Bulldog edition, explain what that means to the audience, which is me. I know what a Bulldog edition is, but don't assume that I know that. Make sure you explain it. So any of you folks doing television, broadcast, music, movies, anything like that, remember industry terminology, you want to explain what that means. The word internet gets capitalized. This is a very old-timey thing, but unfortunately it's still a rule that the American Psychological Association, or the folks who invented the citation system we're using in this paper, they still use, so we're kind of stuck with it. So the word internet gets a capital I regardless where it is in the sentence. I think this is old-fashioned, but they didn't ask me. Cut redundancies. So I have noticed this phrase pop up at least 2 different intros so far, but the phrase still currently today. The phrase still currently today is using 3 words that all mean the same thing. You could say something is still happening or currently happening, it's happening today. All 3 of those mean the same thing. Still currently today is just adding in extra words to hit a word count. It makes it hard to read and not good. So don't do that. That's silly. Double check capitalization on things. There's a lot of rules in the APA and the American Psychological Association handbook for style and formatting. And you're probably not going to have most of them memorized. I've been using APA for a decade now, and I still don't have them memorized. Stuff like Congress gets capitalized, but congressman or congresswoman gets lowercase. Unless a name follows, sure, I always have to look this stuff up. If you don't have an APA handbook, if you didn't buy one of those at the beginning of the semester, just Googling nearly any question in APA, like do I do blank in APA, will get you a result. Also, OWL, the Purdue OWL, the online writing lab, has nearly the entire contents of the APA book on their site in tutorial form, and they are incredibly useful. Make sure you're leaving out or careful to not leave out articles. This is especially a problem from journalism students who come over, and even more specifically, this is a problem with journalism students and MMFP students who are from the broadcast news side of things, where you tend to drop articles to simplify your writing as it is broadcasted. And that includes not using a, an, and the, which are our most common articles. In research writing, though, we need to be specific and on point, and so we need to make sure we are leaving a, an, and the in our sentences. Make sure certain pronouns match with their nouns. I saw a couple of these in your intros. So when referring to a person, he or she is referred to as a who, not a that. So first name, last name, who invented the radio, not first name, last name, that invented the radio. People are who. This sort of goes with any and all kinds of writing, and that is that shorter, simpler sentences tend to be better. You can write a 10 to 12-page paper on short, simple sentences that include a basic subject, verb, and object, and you could do just fine. You don't have to overcomplicate it. This is not your high school examinations where the need to show that you know all these complex English rules counts. I am looking for the content of your writing. You don't need to impress me with multiple complex sentences. Newspaper and other news products are an it, not a there. So the Atlanta Constitution revised its policy after the incident, not revised their policy. So the name of a news product, so the Atlanta Constitution is a news product, or the NBC Nightly News is a news product, not the company name, but the product it produces, that is referred to as an it instead of a there. One person does not own the product. Technically they do, but you know what I mean. Any words or even thoughts that are not your own must be APA cited. This is probably the #1 piece of feedback I had. For some people, it was the only feedback I had. For some of you, it was added in with other stuff, but it was well more than half of the intros that I gave feedback to I had this problem with, which is underciting. Anything that you have that you pulled from another source, whether it's a news article, whether it's general knowledge that you think you pulled from a Wikipedia page, but you need to find where it's cited, anything at all that is a statement of fact that you pulled from somewhere else in order to put in your paper needs to be cited. And there's two ways that we cite things. One is in-text citation, and that is something like what you're looking at there, where in the body of the paper itself, as soon as you use something from another source, or use something from another study or a news article or wherever it is, wherever you're getting that info from, it is in text, in parentheses, with name, year. What goes in there in the parentheses will change depending on what it is. Certain periodicals may have a month and a day as well. You have to look those up in the APA style book or the APA handbook. And also the quick guide APA cheat sheet that I uploaded to the research toolbox has got quick references there for in-text and end of paper citations. But there's two forms. One is the stuff in parentheses in the body of the text like that. And then the other is the stuff that goes at the end of the paper, which would look something like this, that's got the names and the date, where it was published, what journal it was published in, what volume it's in, so that other people can go look up the research for themselves. So remember those two forms of citations. I was amazed at how many intros I read that didn't have any in-text citations. That was why it was one of my main feedbacks. It's like, hey, I bet you didn't know every single fact in this intro yourself. I bet you had to look a couple of them up. Whenever you look it up, put it in the references section, cite it in text, good to go. Don't use contractions. And by that I mean do not use contractions. Get it? Haha. Use a person's full name and title for future reference, only last name thereafter. For those of you who are from the journalism side of things, this will be a nice new or a familiar fact for you. For everyone else, congratulations. Here's a cool fact. When you're writing about people, especially in academic research, it follows a rule set that is the very first time that you introduce the person, you use their full name, first name, last name. And then every other time you use their last name from that, or you use their name from that point forward in the study, you just use their last name. So I could say something like, J. Edgar Hoover helped shape the popular image of the FBI agent by carefully gatekeeping access to props, sets, and scripts. After Hoover died, now if you notice we're putting just last name, the depiction of the FBI agent in film and TV shows began to shift. It's actually a study that we, Dr. Dean Cummings and I just got published, or not published, but accepted to a conference that we're presenting next month. We're very proud of it. Also, it was just got to watch a lot of movies about the FBI, which is pretty fun. Don't use the word etc. or the abbreviation etc. In academic research, it just doesn't have a good place. Either include all the items which you're referring to, or stop after the last named item. You just don't need them. It's just busy words. You don't need them. The word like, L-I-K-E, the word like is only employed, it's only used in academic research in cases of comparison, not as a conjunction. So the correct way to do it is on the left there. If it looks like, it's going to rain, or it sounds like the motor's broken. Anytime you can take the word like and substitute the phrase as if, like the movie Clueless, that is the correct form of the word like. What we want to avoid is using it as a conjunction in academic writing. So there used to be an old-timey slogan for Winston cigarettes. If you ever want to look these up, the Flintstones, the lovable childhood cartoon characters that make the vitamins, they used to sponsor Winston cigarettes back in the 50s, back when you could just let children's TV cartoons smoke cigarettes on screen. And their slogan was, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. In that case, the word like is being used as a conjunction and not a comparison, in which case we don't want to use it. So if you can fully substitute the term as if, you're using it correctly. And then last but not least, be careful with hedge words. This is a thing that probably about a quarter of you received feedback on, but I want to make sure everybody knows as they're working to fill out the rest of their study. Hedge words are things that writers of history, particularly writers of history in the world of academic writing, tend to use when they know that, or when they figure that there's probably a number there, but they just don't know it. And it comes across not great. It's stuff like saying lots of people believed that, or many said that, or few understood the power of that. Like words like lots and many and few. Here are the basic rules for hedge terms. Either use a specific number, try as hard as you can to find the specific number, or if you can't find it, cite this from somewhere else. If you have another author who's saying that the majority of something occurred or many of something happened, use that citation, and like we were talking about with attribution, put that citation there. Also, try the best you can to just write around this and avoid these terms. Either be specific, cite, or just avoid them. Write around as necessary. So with that, that's pretty well the writing tips that I have based off of what I saw in the introductions. The vast majority of you are doing great. You are well on a path to be successful with this paper. Don't forget the paper is due Monday at 5 p.m. It is our only deadline that is not noon. So you now have about 3 days to get your research wrapped up, get it edited. I would suggest give yourself plenty of time, especially on that Monday, if you can. Give yourself plenty of time before you turn it in to read through the whole thing first. And I can give you a couple editing tips. One, if you can manage it and you have one, print the study off, your 10 to 12 pages, print that off on paper, read through it with a red pen and try to edit it that way. You will, for some reason, the way our brains work, you will catch errors, you will see problems, you will be able to assess things differently when you are reading it on a physical piece of paper than if it is on a computer screen in front of your face. I don't think science can fully explain why that is the case, but it is absolutely the case. So print it off and try to edit it yourself. Also, you have a wonderful resource in the 28 other of you that are in this class. So in your various group me's and slacks and all the other things that y'all use to chat about the class to each other, away from where I can see it, which is fine, I don't care. Use each other to help edit each other's work, right? Like, try to find people that you can exchange papers with and give it a clean edit and make some suggestions on it with each other before you turn it in. I think that'll help you a lot. So with that, please hit me with any questions you may happen to have. Otherwise, good luck, and I am super duper looking forward to reading your studies.